Well, hello, everybody, and hello, Andy and Chad. How was your guys' weeks this week?
Dude, I don't even know. I've been so swamped, I can't even think anymore. Okay?
I love it.
And I'm serious. The Board of Education made me spend all my entire Monday night with them, and I hadn't even really slept yet, and I had to go spend 4 hours with the blasted county commission. And I
that's going to be interesting.
Barely got recovered from that, and then I had to go watch the city vote to tear somebody's house down, and I'm tired. It's just we're in again one of those cycles, and this. Yeah, in a 24-hour period, I spent about 8.5 hours in governmental meetings. Which, man, that's too much time in governmental meetings. Love them all, but too much time.
Yeah, it's slow.
So how was my week? I'm busy and I'm tired.
You're alive and well.
I am alive and well.
As I always say, Chad.
And I have finished my script for the Rod Roast on Saturday.
We went and did a little bit of setup just to make sure that everything was going to go in a smooth fashion, so everybody kind of knew what was going to happen before it happened, and it's going to be interesting. Andy?
It's been really good. Just busy. Work is very intense right now. It's the end of the year.
Yep.
So we're getting numbers in to finalize some things. We're having trouble getting quotes out the way we need to be. But big picture, things are good. Had some very interesting meetings this week. Just got to get better and get bigger shoulders, I guess. There's a lot going on and a lot about to happen. This morning, there was a cool thing that took place with the group of people that I'm a part of. And I'm super proud to see what they're doing and how they are embracing the opportunity for kiddos in this community. And so there'll be some videos coming online here pretty soon. Y'all get to see those guys. They were up at 7 a.m. with all their responsibilities. Most of them are very active in different groups and things, but they're choosing to readjust their time to serve our youth. Athletics is what they're really targeting, but it's athletics and activities, and I don't want to lose the activities part because there's a lot of kids that sing and play instruments and things that need the same environments, and the athletics is just not for everybody, and it's not, but there is a place for everybody, and we need to figure out what those spaces look like. And I'm really excited about the gaming thing. I had a conversation with somebody about some gaming stuff where we can also embrace those kiddos, because that is another segment of kids and another piece of our culture that's just being left behind. And there's ways to use that in a productive way. So anyways, there's just so many great things happening. I just need to figure out how to get better with my time. And we're moving to do that. Next year is going to be fast. Good. But I'm excited about the challenge.
Good. Very good. My week, I'd say, was tiresome. I'm busy, like you gentlemen, trying to just continue down this path, especially with Harvey County Talk, HCTalk, and what that looks like for the future. I mentioned a few months ago that we were going to be doing some things different, and I think people are starting to see that now, and I'm hoping for good results. We're seeing a lot of good results, and I just like to say thank you to everybody that's engaging and participating in this podcast, because ultimately this is your podcast. This is not the Lance Show. This is the podcast for Harvey County, right? So just real quick before we get into the political things that we were going to talk about, because I mentioned last week on the program that we were going to wind up talking about exit polls and the results of the election, because we'd have more information at that time, and it's always better to gather the information and then provide a conclusion rather than make statements, have hasty conclusions, and then be in a situation where you were wrong. So I always hate that. But I would say that after hearing some news yesterday, I felt like I got a kick to my gut. And it's not for me personally necessarily, but really a loss to our county. Anthony Schwartzendruber, who's been the county administrator for many years and been a faithful
7 years.
But been a faithful and loyal employee to the county for long before that too. I mean, he was the public finance director before that.
He started in about 2010.
2010.
Yeah.
Yeah. So upon hearing the news that Anthony Schwartzendruber had resigned, and his last day, I believe, will be December 28th, of this year, before the new commission comes on, I just felt a loss. I felt a real loss, like a loss for our community, because what a rock star that person is. Like I said, faithfully and loyally served our community. I don't know all of what's happening there. I can surmise, especially after being so closely involved in that situation, having run for that office. So I'm just hoping that, I'm just praying for our community that we'll continue to move forward in a direction that's beneficial for everybody, rather than what I fear is coming down the pipe because of our loss of him.
You don't know. We're entering an unknown. Yeah. We don't know what's coming next.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we will find out. His last day is supposed to be December 27th. Yeah. So, and yeah, I've got some contacts within the county employee base that are a bit nervous too, because they don't think this is going to be the only resignation we're going to see over the course of the next little while. I mean, our commission over the course of the last couple years has gotten a shakeup, and that has people concerned. I'm not saying that's why Mr. Schwarzenegger left.
Yeah.
Because honestly, I don't know. I know he's going to land on his feet. I've been told people are happy for him in the courthouse. And so he's going to land on his feet and he's going to be fine. And this was all his choice. There was no pressure brought from anywhere. He just decided this was his time to leave Harvey County government.
Yeah.
And you know what? More power to him.
Yeah. Andy, I got a question for you on that.
Yeah.
You're a leader, a mover, and a shaker. How do you view that scenario? I mean, when a community loses a rock star like that, what do you think the first step forward is?
Yeah, first of all, I don't know anything that's going on behind the scenes. I mean, I've heard things, but you got to be careful when you hear things for a lot of reasons. I think it's very telling, and optics don't look good coming into the switch, especially the whispers behind the scenes and the narratives that are out there. Again, I take it with a grain of salt unless I see it and know it myself, or if I'm going to put the time in to change it, I don't normally talk about it. But you hear stuff here and there, and that it just doesn't look good. Anthony's young. He's got 14 years of experience. So to answer your question, anytime you have somebody operating an organization or a system that has in this space for 14 years, there's two ways to look at it. One, he's got his hands on everything. He understands where all the moving pieces are. There's a lot of value to that. He understands the nuances and relationships that are there. It is about as stable as you can get a system. The other way to look at it as a person like me is you could get stagnant after 14 years. And sometimes it's good to get somebody else new in there to shake things up and to maybe look behind the curtains and clean other spaces that maybe weren't a gift or a talent of the individual that was leading at the time. You will literally have companies that hire CEOs for 4 years on purpose, and they'll hire somebody that's really good at some HR stuff, that's really good at embracing and building culture, bringing in energy, bringing in optimism, setting goals, getting everybody to move in the same direction. And then the next 4 years, they'll hire somebody that's very detail-oriented, very numbers-driven, that totally changes it up and switches it up. Also, advertising agencies, you will almost never see a big company, and I mean 150 employees and up, right? A bigger company. And that's still a small company for a lot of people's, depending on how you're structured, right? But let's just say 150 corporate jobs, not outside of that, because you can get into the tens of thousands at that point, right? When you've got 150 corporate, let's just say a franchisor, right? Not a franchisee, okay? So when you're a franchisor, you will have an ad agency or an advertising agency, for those people that don't know those terms, that will come in for 3 to 4 years. And they focus on a specific set of skill set for what their marketing, their target market advertising is. And then they will fire them and bring in another advertising agency to get a rework, to start focusing on other target markets, maybe other things. And sometimes you do, which is, it gets sticky. You'll hire two to compete back in against each other to bring out the best messages. And then you'll bring in so there's a lot of seesawing that goes on. So you could look at this a lot of different ways. I always tend to look at the positive, and at the end of the day, this community is going to watch, we're going to vote, and we're going to hold people accountable, good or bad. And so there's a lot of opportunity on the table right now, and I hope for the best. Now, I have some speculation and I have some concerns, but you got to give people the opportunity to win.
Yep.
Yeah. And that's not on me right now, but I will be watching, and I'll be loud as hell if this gets crazy.
Yeah.
Just saying, straight up.
Yeah.
So
well, I hate to say,
and either which way, it could be crazy successful.
Yeah.
But if it's going to be crazy stupid, I mean, we're going to talk about crazy stupid. If it's going to be crazy successful, I'll hold myself to the same standard, which I'll be the biggest cheerleaders you got. So I'm hoping in this situation, I get to cheer them on because it's good for all of us.
Yeah. I appreciate your optimism. I really do, Andy.
Yeah.
I appreciate your optimism.
Roger that.
I would say not as optimistic as you, but I'm the same as you in reference to I will give credit where credit is due. And if there's criticism, then I will equally criticize. And it seems like in many instances it's hard for general public even to give credit where credit's due without falling into the negative. So speaking of negative and credit where credit's due and all of this and what we had talked about last week, we're going to talk about this week, even though it took a little over a week to get majority of the results, it appears right now that the Republican Party has taken the presidency, the Senate, and the House. So the end result of the election was that Trump, really, in my opinion, ran away with it. 312 delegates to Harris's 226. Just generally speaking on the overall aspect of that, I know watching a lot of the information going into the election, they said that it was going to be a nail biter. Almost everybody, every news outlet said it was going to be a nail biter. And in a lot of ways, it showed Harris as being up in the 7 swing states. But in the end, Trump took all 7 swing states. What do you guys think about that? Who wants to go first? Andy? Chad?
There's a lot there. I mean, I haven't watched seriously polls for a while for purposes of actually watching people take polls and looking at the small segments. I was part of a company one time. It's a big company. And I was an independent contractor building a book of business under their umbrella. And they did a survey probably in 2008. And I saw how they did that survey, and I was blown away. They spent like $1.2 million on the survey. And when we got the results back, because I was in the field, and when you're in the field and you're in the sales distribution piece of an organization, I'm telling you, salespeople will manipulate. They understand in and out, ups and downs. You got to pay attention to sales. Sales knows how it comes downstream because they are feeding and eating, especially when it's commission-based sales. And you don't eat unless you kill something. They will find your weaknesses. They will find out how to get bonuses around your bonus systems and creative ways that you had no idea to get their money in their pocket. So anyways, when they took a survey, and this is 2008, 2009, I was shocked because I was in the distribution sales piece. I was actually a regional manager at the time, which I had a sales force, but I was just right above that where I was selling all the time. And I knew what they were going to do to manipulate the new programs that came through to push us to push a product, right? Basically. So after a while, you understand these nuances. And I was just close enough to go, that's bullcrap. There's no way that's going to work. And because I was one of those people that was like, they're shooting bombs off into the field. And I was the guy in the field that they weren't getting the coordinates from. And I realized how messy it could be. So from there, I began to watch it differently because, surveys are surveys, polls were polls. I took it for what they gave me. And I didn't realize it's all ran by people. People have interest. Behind the scenes, interest people pay other people to do surveys for certain reasons. Those surveys end up usually telling you the data of the things you're looking for. You can go into a courtroom and you can hire a witness, a psychologist, and then you can hire somebody on the other side of that issue that will tell you the conclusion of the other side. So we as people just got to take off the blindfold and just realize what's happening. And I think it comes down to individual just being more aware of your surroundings.
Yeah.
So what do I think about the polls? I think they were silly. I've thought that for a long time. I really don't pay attention. I understand why they do those things. I don't want to get into the weeds on that because it's my opinions, but I'm pretty strong about those opinions, of course. As y'all know, I'm a very opinionated dude.
But they do them because they can motivate different sets of people by doing them.
Or unmotivate.
Yeah.
Yes.
Both, yeah.
Yes.
So you think there's more of like when it comes to polls that in some instances the way they word them and the demographic in which they choose to question and then get a response can be nefarious at times, or do you think it's more of
Well, let me ask you. I've never been called by a pollster. But let me ask you. Do you think that if you get that call from a pollster, you're going to get the following? Are you voting for Donald Trump or Kamala Harris? Is that the question they're going to ask you? I'll be blunt. I don't think so. I absolutely don't think so.
you don't think it's black and white at all?
Oh, hell no.
Have you ever gotten a poll text message? I'm sorry, real quick, guys. I wasn't part of our experience. When you put these bad boys on,
Yeah, it changes things, doesn't it?
whoa. Chad, what's up? What's up, Lance?
It's called
Sorry.
good sound quality.
No.
you
But yeah,
know?
no, there's no way it is. Okay. In the past, under other corporations, we were charged with, on pretty regular basis, we were charged with creating online surveys. And I'm telling you what, how you ask a question always affects how someone's going to answer it. So no, when they're doing those polls, I mean, the guys from was it Fort Hays State that did the one that showed Harris within 5% of Trump a week before the election. Go read the interviews that was done with him. Okay?
Good call.
Because quite honestly, he said we weren't really asking who people were going to be voting for. Wasn't even the purpose of this. But then he releases results.
People interpret those results.
Okay?
Yeah.
And straight up, what's your headline going to be? You've got one sentence to call attention to the story that you've written. What's your headline going to be?
Interesting perspective.
Harris within 5%. That's your headline. You don't have enough time, energy, space, characters, nothing. You do not have resources to spell it all out for people quick enough to get them to actually read it.
And that's you putting a consumer lens on from a producer.
Yeah.
Your consumer
And
as well is going to look at that headline.
yes,
Yeah.
yes.
So you're going both ways.
Yeah.
Okay?
Interesting.
Because I saw the same headline. I'm like, okay, I need to know more. Because I'm sitting here in my office going, there's no way. There's no way. And then I read the interview, and I'm like, okay, now I get it.
Yeah, but I'll tell you,
So
in my
those
education,
polls that I truly believe every single poll, because I also saw one that predicted an electoral college shutout. 100% red. I was like, no, you are speaking out your ass, man.
I believed it.
yeah. And I told everybody I knew that was going to happen.
I was
right?
like,
Hey, to that point,
you can't be you're going to be so politically motivated that you can't give a Democrat California.
yeah, that's wild.
Come on,
In New York, I mean, there's places that it is what it is.
Yeah.
talk about showing somebody for who they are.
Did you ever get those text messages? Either one of you? I did get a couple text surveys.
I got lots of
Did
text
not get any
messages.
surveys, but I got text messages to vote for specific candidates.
I don't want to exaggerate, but I think I got a lot of text messages, but I got 3 text messages that ended up being surveys, which, because I was curious because of this conversation, I clicked on 2 of them. And you got to be careful, people out there.
Yeah.
Depending on your operating systems. But I and I can play around in those spaces a little bit. It's dangerous, but I can do it. I like danger sometimes. So I clicked on this deal, and the way they worded the survey was so lopsided. And I've got one somehow for from Kamala's camp, because I'm not, my phone numbers, my registration path, I'm like 98% conservative on a test. If I take a test, it's going to put me like at 98%, right? Which is crazy, but that's what it puts me at. So there you go. I want to think I'm more like 70-30, but that's not what the test tells me.
And then back to this, it could be the test that you're taking and how it's worded.
Maybe.
You know, you're being surveyed.
And here's the other thing they were doing, and this is the one that absolutely made me just boil. It's a survey. You go to the survey and you're going through, and I'm like, yeah, I'm going to answer these, and I'm going to answer them honestly, because, you know, if nobody else will, I'll try and send a message. So I answer all the questions, and I get down to the bottom, and there's no submit button. There's a donate button.
Oh,
they got
damn
you.
it.
They got you.
Yeah, that was wrong.
Yeah. I'm like, seriously? And then I'm thinking, okay, so you want to skew results?
So to the point of the questions I had, I got one from Kamala's camp, which surprised me because of the reasons I just talked about. And I got two from Trump's camp. And it was a survey. But I can tell you right now where those surveys came from and what camps they came from. If you really think about that on a bigger picture, if I have access to a national database and you paid me $500,000 to bring your team a survey and in the Midwest, in the Mako states, let's just say, however they break down their systems internally, and they sent a survey to me from her camp, knowing my leanings because of all the data that exists out there in the ether with me, right?
Right.
If the Germans come, I'm going first, baby, right?
I think all three of us will be gone, to be honest.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not going to be able to hide. I got an AR, let's go. No, but at the end of the day, I got two from his camp, but it disappointed me just looking at, if this is how they're going about doing it, it just reinforces my you're full of crap on those surveys. I wish we had a way to vet, to the best of our abilities, people that would openly ask people like myself or you, Chad, that would see things differently, the same questions without trying to ask leading questions to push us in a certain demographic.
Yes.
Because they want to take back with the $500,000 for the week that they took to get this information to their clientele base and say, hey, here's what we got. And it's just like court. If you're a prosecutor, you're going to get somebody that wants to give you that information. Or if you're a defense attorney, you're going to want to give them their information. It's the same thing. It's just going on in the political world. So to answer that question, again, I think the polls are full of crap. It's been proven for sure now.
Yeah, and you know, it's interesting, and I'll say this too. In my academic prowess, there was many times where we were instructed to provide some kind of survey, right? And then to not necessarily, I'm going to say, we were to draw a conclusion based upon the data, but to leave our own biases at bay, right? So, you know, I've got quite a bit of education when it comes to determining what questions you should and shouldn't ask. I mean, there is literally a way that it's supposed to happen and a way that it's not supposed to happen based upon what kind of conclusion you want to reach. And in many cases, part of that study was to go back through and look at surveys that had been taken wrong, right? And to see how that data was misled. And so then what happens is you have this pool of data. Then once you have this pool of data, well, how you choose to interpret that to produce a conclusion may not always be as accurate as we would like it to be. So leaving out your own personal bias is very difficult for a lot of people, anybody. And just furthermore, when you're in a situation of trying to get people to vote one way or the other, oftentimes a poll might have been written in a way that by the end of it, you come to the conclusion that you want to be voting for one or the other, rather than trying to get clear, concrete data. So, U.S. Senate, Republicans took the Senate. I said that, 53-47. That's it. Okay, so now we have a presidency. It's Republican. through Donald Trump. We have a Senate that is now majority Republican. And as of last night at 1 o'clock in the morning, because I tried to wait as long as I could to come up with the most recent data, we're looking at a House results of 216 GOP and 207 Dems. So they have the majority as well. But I will say this, a week out, there's still some left out there. There's actually 435 House seats available. And if you do the math on that, well, then we're not quite there. But oftentimes, you know, we have seen this at different points in history where a president holds the office, the executive branch, then there's the majority Senate, and then there's the majority House of one political party. Why do you think that there was such a resounding, this is a loaded question here, but why do you think there was such a resounding, I would say, conclusion that the pendulum's going to swing the other way, and that the American people, both by popular and electoral college voting, I mean, it's just what it is. The proof is in the pudding.
Because nationally, the pendulum swings. It just does. Okay? I mean, I've got some theories about why it swung this time the way it swung. But nationally, go back and look. It swings. This ain't Kansas where Democrats will never be able to make any inroads. We're talking at the national level. And it's going to swing. Okay? It's just a natural thing. And right now, the environment that we are in, it was going to swing to the red. Not to be flippant, but let's just quote somebody. It's the economy, stupid. And it's really not the economy. It's our perceptions of the economy.
But there's some reality there, and I don't want to take up Andy's time here, but there is some realities there, and I did research a lot of exit polls that we're taking, and I'll just say we'll go over those, but the economy was a main thing, a main factor. So what you're saying is true. It's just, to me, when we are in a situation where milk costs more, every time I go to the grocery store, it's costing more. I mean, if you look at not just 1 year over inflation, but if you're looking at inflation on goods and services and what you have to buy over the last 3 to 5 years, we're talking an exponential increase. So when
there's a message for the now majority party in Washington right there. Okay? And for me, please read some real economists. Okay? They're doing it right now. They're breaking everything down. All the promises that were made. They're breaking those things down. And there's no one thing, but we have a recipe that's coming. I read one this morning, Nobel Prize winning economist, one this morning. And basically the statement was, when you take all of it together, be prepared. Because that recipe is ripe for inflation like we have never seen.
Yeah. And
that's their words. Yeah. Inflations that we have never seen. And they talked about all of the pressures and everything that went into the inflation that we have seen the last 4 years. All right? And now they're talking about what the recipe is moving forward. And it could be really bad. It could be even worse than what we've seen. So the message to the Republican Party is keep your freaking eye on the ball. Because if you allow that to happen, bottom line, we the people are going to blame you.
Yeah.
I think we can safely say that we the people assigned blame for the inflation that we just lived through.
Agreed.
And we will assign that blame again.
Yeah, if it doesn't get fixed. Andy, what do you
So
think?
to prevent the pendulum from swinging, you guys got to keep your eyes on the ball.
Yeah, and not on the inflation thing so much. I mean, but why? Back to the original question. Why do you think that the election turned out the way that it did? Because this was not. I mean, I have to say this, folks. This was not just a nail biter. I mean, literally, the voice was hurt.
It was like
I mean,
Perkins' election. I mean,
yeah,
it was a stomp out.
It was a stomp out.
And I think it goes to many different things. I think economy is one of them. It's very obvious. I mean, I think blowing up a pipeline, being a part of it, did not help us. So you go into the international perception of America. That did not help us. You got illegal immigration that's going on right now at levels that you can't even imagine, that with everything that comes with that. You have people afraid, people that feel gaslighted, a lot of people that feel, even people that before would have never voted for a Republican Party or specifically for President Trump because he could be nails on a chalkboard for a lot of people. That got tired of some of the rhetoric that they were hearing when they were saying one thing but experiencing another. And I think that messaging was ridiculous. I think some of the culture pieces and social emotional pieces were taken too far. The gender assignment surgeries, those types of things when they were trying to get government funding for that kind of stuff when you're in facilities like jails and stuff, which was real. That was a real conversation, which is, that blows people away like myself who try to be as reasonable as we can be. There's some things you just don't do. And I think America just got sick and tired of it. And I think there was a lot, I know there was a lot of people that voted, that will say something on social media, but voted for Trump over here because the numbers don't make sense if you didn't do that at a lot of levels. And so I just think there's a lot of stuff, right? When you look at the bigger picture, I think, frankly, Kamala was a super weak candidate because she played the game of politics and didn't really have a message that I could speak of. And she was not seen as a hitter through her vice presidency all the way up to the very end. And then all of a sudden, and I stole this from other media, they try to make her a Barack Obama. And she's just not.
Yeah.
He is articulate, good looking, well-spoken, smart, quick on his feet. I mean, the dude has charisma out the wazoo. I mean, he's just a special bird. He comes into a room, you're going to know he's there. She did not carry any of that. Yeah. And frankly, she was weak on her feet. And I think it just got exposed. They did not have a strong candidate. There was so many other people they could have put in place that would have gave Trump a run for his money, I think. Yeah. And they just chose what they chose. And I also think it bothered people that she got there without being voted to that position. I think that bothered a lot more people than what people think. The way it happened on that side of the aisle.
Well, and I'll say too that
I have a real problem with that.
Shoot, yeah, go for it.
I really do. Okay, it is the party's job to nominate someone. Period. Okay? And so when your candidate that you have voted for and done your primary, when he pulls out, what the hell are you supposed to do?
Well, and I'll say this:
what are you supposed to do?
What you're saying is true because the
further, the Republicans were the ones 4 years ago that were canceling primaries. Okay, we got Donald Trump 4 years ago. He was an incumbent president, and they acted like they didn't even need to bother with primaries at all. And then if you go back to what was it, Roosevelt? He was a shoo-in for the Republican nomination, and he shows up to the convention, and the next day he's founding the Bull Moose Party because they said, "Nah, you're gone. No, we're going to do this guy." So that's why I have a real problem with it, right? And we can make statements that, yeah, they were ball playing games and Biden shouldn't have never run. I agree he should have never run, but he did run. And he did get the support in the primaries. And then he pulled out. What's the party supposed to do? Well, it's their job to put somebody on the ballot.
But I go back to the fact that, they call it Parkinsonian dementia, all right? And I think we're going to find, because I have heard this on multiple occasions, that Biden is suffering from a mental health condition, okay? And I personally think over the last year, whether you like to hear it or not, this is my opinion, that it was borderline elder abuse, okay? So there have been times in history, we know this, where a president was in office and the players around the president, even up to a wife, was the one that was doing the bidding of what the president should have done and just keeping him in office. But this comes back to partisan politics. And I will say this, I don't think Biden is getting a fair shake, okay? Especially if we're in a situation where we're not completely aware or have all of our faculties that the people around them are utilizing whatever means necessary to step on the back of that individual, encourage that individual to run, instead of people around him saying, hey, maybe you shouldn't be doing this because of your situation. So I will say this, Nancy Pelosi, gotta love her, has now come out publicly and said that Biden was the reason that the Democrats did not win, because he didn't pull out fast enough for there to be an opportunity for Kamala Harris to have more time. So they haven't deviated from saying that Kamala Harris would have been the best opportunity for the Democratic Party to win the presidency against Trump. What they're saying is that Biden didn't step out
But
fast
what that
enough.
goes to, Lance, is to my point. My point. She didn't have an opportunity to go through the primaries.
Yeah, and I think she would have got smoked.
I think so too.
Pete Buttigieg didn't have a chance to go through the primaries. Yeah. I mean, we can sit here and we can list them.
Yeah.
Well,
none of them had a chance to go through the
I
primaries.
agree with that, but I think from one of my opinions of what I've seen and what I'm hearing and looking at the votes, if you're asking the reasons why, there's a big swath of people, even within the own party, that had a problem with that. Yeah. When JFK wanted to come up and step up, who would have taken a lot of the country with him for a lot of reasons.
Very well could have beat Trump.
Very well. It would have been a freaking firefight. Yeah. I like a lot of what he stands for, a lot of what he says. It's things like that people go, then to leave him on the ballot in those games and suing him for coming in and then not letting him get off and all these games. It's all the games. Yeah. People went,
political games.
Oh, hell no. And I'm not saying I didn't like it, but it doesn't matter what I like. I'm one vote. That map and all of those results are pieces of all of these little things that people are just sick and tired. And I'm telling you, even when I take those tests and where I line up with my voting record, I wish there was another party.
Oh, I do too.
Many of us
because
do.
We are screwed on so many levels. And you're right. The Republicans have the keys and they better get some crap done. And I am one of them, right? And I'm going to be working my butt off in my local community like I have been, doing what I can do. But in the bigger picture, we are so wedged in because of the gamification of what we just talked about with the games with Kennedy and Kamala getting pushed in and all the, is it true or was it not true? I don't care. I don't like any of it. I know why they're doing it. In my opinion, I'm going to hold what. You can't tell me one thing, and I've got this thing sitting here for a reason, and gaslight the hell out of me and expect me to believe something different, just like the pollsters did. I'm done. I'm done with that. And I understand why they're playing the games, but I don't want anything to do with it.
There's a fairly new account on X, and I told you guys before the show today that I've pretty much left X, but
I'm going to have to jump on to make up for your time.
There you go. And it's called the Reagan Caucus. And they... To me, they were just kind of like a ray of sunshine over the course of the last 3 weeks, because they were throwing a lot of common sense out there. So when I say things like, what was the party supposed to do? That's where I get that, right? These are they
were supposed to not play so many games leading up to that point, because people were calling it months before it happened, and it's literally what happened. There's a lot of people in Washington and surrounding areas and pundits that don't get shown on the big screens, that have millions of followers, by the way,
Yeah.
that were calling it. They said
Yes,
this is
they were.
Vivek is
They
one of them.
need to,
This is exactly what's going to happen. He mapped it out, and sure enough,
At
they
the
pushed
end
it.
of the day,
Partisan politics.
at the end of the day,
propaganda.
what were we dealing with? We were dealing with an incumbent, which is always harder to beat. We were dealing with an incumbent president who had been steamrolling everybody in their primaries. Okay? And it's Biden's job to pull the plug on his own campaign. And they were stuck into a no-win situation when it came to that decision. Because if you pull the plug early, if the DNC walks in and says, no, you're not doing this, there would have been a bloodbath.
Well, it almost appeared, and in the end, I'm just going to say this, from some of the stuff that I saw coming out from the Biden regime, almost seemed like he was a little bit irritated with the fact that they did him the way they did him, and that he was of no benefit whatsoever. In fact, I want to say that with as much political prowess as some of these people had, including Obama, that it was almost like a sabotage, in my opinion. I mean, coming out and Bill Clinton, some of the stuff that he was saying was basically pro-Trump. I got
a question.
I mean,
was
it's
Jill
unbelievable.
Biden's dress on election night an accident or not?
No accident.
What do you think?
There's
I
no
didn't see it,
accidents.
so I can't
She had a red
comment.
dress on.
I mean,
At that level, there ain't no accidents. Come on,
It's
guys.
it's a
love
power color.
Red or blue? Yeah.
I mean,
red or blue
tell you.
ties.
Take it from a child of the 80s that went to business classes. Red's a power color. You got to wear a red tie.
Yeah. Trump tie, as they would call
Right.
it, right, Chad?
I went through a time period where I'm still pissed off about this, okay? I don't remember what year it was, but we had some jackass from either Gatehouse or Gannett Media that walked in and said, you got to change the color of the Kansan flag. You can't use journal blue anymore. You have to use red because red is a power color and it will sell in the racks. No. Why
probably
are
got
we
that off a
throwing
survey.
away 100 freaking years of history over a color?
Chad, he had a PhD.
Yeah. Polling showed. Okay,
was a
and
master
speaking of polling, okay, I want to throw some of
It's
this out
a
here.
power color, dude.
Okay.
Just saying.
Throw some of this out here, okay? I'm just going to run through these real quick, just throwing back and forth. But of exit polls, which I think are the most accurate polls, you take somebody that went and voted, and then you ask them why they voted the way they voted. So if you want real accurate information, not this lottery gamble that we do and try to fix and figure out and all this and what people are actually saying and how to interpret what you think they're actually saying, like we had mentioned, it comes down to why you actually voted, okay? And opinion of Biden was 43% very unfavorable, with very favorable with 18%. Opinion of Harris was 32% favorable, 42% unfavorable. Waltz, 25% very favorable, 31% very unfavorable.
Oh, that was another factor, by the way. Waltz was a horrible pick.
Yeah, she should
horrible
have picked the governor
And
of
then they just
Pennsylvania.
kept digging him in so
Yeah.
far. He was
Yeah,
under the bus.
She most definitely should have picked the Pennsylvania.
No positive effect for her.
Yep.
No, a wash, totally a wash, a waltz. Anyway, sorry with my
was good.
dry humor. Okay, opinion of Trump: 32% very favorable, 45% unfavorable. Vance: 27 favorable, 36 unfavorable. Oof. Opinion of Kennedy: 15% favorable, 29% unfavorable.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
there's nobody here.
There's nobody that's getting
There's
any real
nobody
favorable
here
opinion.
that's getting any real
Okay,
numbers, right?
Most important thing facing the country, economy, 39%. Right? Then it was immigration at 20% and abortion at 11%.
Abortion. That's
Okay, so all interpreted differently as we'll just call it women's rights. Okay,
Yeah,
women's
that's
rights.
the tagline.
Okay, role of government: 53% that said they should do more, and 45% said they don't. They do too much. Moving on with some more of these statistics here. Supreme Court job performance: Strongly approved 16%, strongly disapproved 27%. Now, granted, all these that I said, there are stats in between, somewhat favorable and somewhat unfavorable, that make up the rest of the percentage that's not being spoken here, with the very favorable and the very unfavorable.
You're just highlighting the really strong emotion.
Yes, yeah. Congress job performance, 5% strongly approve. Think about that. 27% strongly disapprove. Opinion of the Democratic Party, 22% said very favorable and 37% said unfavorable. Let's go a few more here. They threw in Secret Service job performance, 13% strongly approved, 17% disapproved. Department of Justice performance, 14% approved, 23% strongly disapproved. So, I mean, I could go on to this for days with all the stuff that comes out. One thing I think, some big flyers here that caused the most interest in me was, how concerned about housing costs are you? 51% said very, over half. Okay, 5% not at all. So that should tell you something. Another one was reducing number of immigrants allowed to seek asylum. 41% were strongly in favor of limiting that, while only 13% strongly opposed. So one other one that is very interesting that will, somebody could interpret is, what should happen to illegal immigrants living in the United States? 56% said chance for legal status and 43% said deportation. So of all that I just rattled off to you guys, okay, one thing that I can say about the whole thing is that it appears to me that people are really honestly dissatisfied with government.
Oh, yes.
Okay, and they don't trust government, first off, and that there was more voting against the political party that they view as in power versus voting for the other political party.
That's
my opinion now, but I'd like you guys to just give me a...
Very interesting.
Would you agree with the following statement? That, again, based on those numbers, that they were voting because of their perception of the economy and their perception of inflation, and they have assigned blame.
I don't think I don't think so.
I'd say
I think it's a combination of things. For me, I'm an average dude. Like, I'm usually right in the middle with things like this, and I saw several factors. I don't think it's the perception of the economy; it's what I'm feeling and living through. I think it's the $8,000 to $10,000 more a year we're spending with average needs and the feeling of that. I don't think people in their everyday life, for the most part, take time to step back and vote off of logic. I think a lot of people vote off of feelings and reactionary. And whatever state of mind they're in with this quarter or this month, when the decision hit them, is where they were moving. And it was telling when I watched these commercials and how they were framing their message to the American public. They were speaking in a way to bring up feelings and emotions to get somebody to react towards a message, a little small message.
Well, let me give you a little bit more about why I'm saying perceptions. What I'm really saying there is they have assigned blame. They have assigned blame for the increased price of eggs. And they've done that based on their own perception of who's responsible. And there's a reason that I go there. We have never truly put the blame where it belongs. I mean, never, ever done that. We have never wanted to wake up and understand the fact that it's decisions that were made months in advance that have led to where we are right now. This
Decades
country,
ago. Decades
yes,
ago, Chad.
this country did the same. They did the same. They
It's been
did.
20 years of war. We
Yeah.
shouldn't
Yes, exactly.
be trillions of dollars.
Trillions of dollars. And then before that.
And then
before that,
leaving,
So,
and before
well-
that.
leaving hundreds of billions of dollars of equipment in a place saying it's cheaper. I mean, just that mindset. It's
Right.
that government bureaucracy. It's like, what?
We're
You
Well,
can't put put that stuff on planes and fly it to a neighboring country that we could support differently or that we have bases in. You're going to leave it there for our enemy to squander billions, hundreds of billions. That's not like chump change, but yet we're being shoved, force fed things, and there's just so many. There's so many things.
Lot.
But
I was
we're
awake.
done.
I was awake, and I was alive.
Matt tells me we're done.
Yeah.
And this organization is being formed right now is going to be radical. We're going to have a lot of people going nuts in their feelings. We're going to have change going on that people do not like. And there are going to be a lot of reactionary. I heard a speech from Biden saying that we won't see the benefits from his moves for 20 or 30 years. Already projecting that what we're going to see in the stock market numbers now are from things that he did. Just like they meaning political parties, to be specific, will say, well, the reason things are good during Trump was because Obama hooked them up. And now the things that are going to be good now is because Biden hooked them up. And then the opposite will go on the opposite side. They play this
Correct.
seesaw game, and their messaging
They
is
play
so
the game.
complex.
Yeah.
And this is what I want people to understand. Love your neighbors. Hook up with the people to the left and right of you. The person with the Tim Waltz Kamala sign is not evil. The person with the Trump sign is not evil. Stop it.
Yeah. Well, I will say this, Andy. I mean, I'm going to say this. One thing
let
that
me
we
give
can
you
all
an-
probably
I'll give
agree
you an
on.
example. All right. It's February 13th. And I remember so well because I remember why I was in the grocery store that day. It was a February 13th. And I got two people that are just, I can't believe the price of this shit. I can't believe the price of this. What the heck is Joe Biden doing to us? He's been president for 1 month. 1 month. I looked right at him and said, don't blame him. This is the result of decisions that were made 6 months ago.
Or longer than that.
Yes.
Well, I'm going to tell you this.
And I'm
too.
sitting here going,
this is my
the
thing.
oil markets
We
and
cannot
the energy markets already started changing last week because of anticipation of pipelines opening up and
But
phone calls that are being made.
But Andy, again, this is exactly what came out of my mouth on February 13th. He's been president for a month. You're complaining in the grocery store and you're complaining at the gas pump. And all this stuff got put into motion before he ever took office.
Okay. I think
Likewise, there's stuff going on right now before Trump has taken office. So 6 months from now, if we're all bitching and moaning about something that was Joe's responsibility, we better not be bitching anymore.
But we're
here's
going
the
back to
problem.
the-
Here's the problem, though, guys. We're doing exactly what the ruling class wants us to do right now, right here. We need to stop. There is a big chess game being played, and we are pawns. And let me try to be as clear as I can be to bring out the understanding. So God help me with this word. Manipulation from the both parties are ridiculous.
Yep.
They trick, churn, don't take any responsibility. And I'm so hopeful that we have people right now that are saying, I'm freaking done. This is not going to look like what it used to look like. But we're going to try our best to give this party back to the people. And I think that map is showing that. And unfortunately, there's a guy leading the charge that a lot of people don't like because of who he is and how he does things. But that's kind of the character you need in this story. I think there's going to be sabotage no matter what, just because a lot of people are going to get pissed off about what's coming down the pipe. There's going to be changes with 3-letter agencies. Education's going to be hit and changed and morph. Because it's not what we've seen in the past. 20 years from now, we'll know if it was good or bad.
Yeah, it'll take that time.
But the games and the sabotage is what hurts because we're the ones that get hurt. All this we're talking about have been games from two parties, and that's why I go back to I cannot stand what we've done to ourselves and each other by doing these two-party things, because most of us agree on most things. And most of us, almost everybody in my life, Democrat or Republican, I can see a difference in opinion in them and something that we don't agree on, and just be like, well, that's their prerogative to live that way.
Yeah. Well, let's say this too. Okay. Two things. One, I just got to make the statement.
It's my prerogative.
Once again, mutual assured destruction. I've been watching this and studying politics nearly my whole life. Okay. One without an education, one with an education. And I'm here to tell you that what Andy's saying is true. I believe that no matter what happens, the Democrats will always try to blame the Republicans for it, because then that means that maybe they will be put in power and able to do what they want to do. And the Republicans will always blame the Democrats, so that way they'll be in power and they'll be able to do what they want to do. But one thing's for sure, when Congress is voting for something that benefits themselves, they will get together faster than anybody you've ever seen on the same team to make sure that they are taken care of. Their special interests are taken care of. There's no end to crony capitalism in our society. It's to a breaking point at this point. And I will say this too: the thing that both parties used effectively, whether or not one won over the other, goes back to what we talked about before we ever really started having this conversation a couple weeks ago. And I go back to the fear mongering. All right, both used fear to try to drive people to the polls to vote against the other person, not for them. Okay, there's no positive feel-good anything that takes place when it comes to politics.
This was not Chad calling his father on a Tuesday morning and saying, get down to the polls and vote for Ross Perot.
That's correct. It was.
That actually happened. Vote for Ross Perot. I'm tired of these two parties. This guy will just, if he were to get elected, would send a message that we're done with the two-party system. Dad, go vote for Ross Perot. That is not what happened in this election. It is not what has happened in probably any election since.
I agree. It's a disaster and fear-mongering, and this comes back to this. I've watched people on social media, granted, AI algorithms, whatever it might be, but literally melting down and thinking that this is the end of the world. This is the end of the world. I'm going to shave my head. I'm going to go out here and have a physical reaction to where I'm bawling my eyes out and crying. And I think telling my children that this is the end of the world. This is the end of the world. The devil has now taken the seat of the presidency, and the devils have taken, we're not going to stop fighting. It's like, okay, well, at some point in time,
That's so real. That's so crazy.
We have got to take a step back. And I know this. Clinically, fears left unchecked turned into phobias. A fear is a healthy, rational way to experience an emotion based upon something outside of us that could harm us. Perceived, or whether it's rational perception or irrational perception. A phobia is an irrational fear or perception of something. And I think we've come to that point. We've got to get away from this belief that somehow or another our whole existence, our entire existence, is dependent upon whether a D is in office or an R is in office, and start to wake up as a society and realize that we the people have the power. And it's because of what they've done. They've done to us is why we're in the state that we're in. And this is not something new. This is something that's happened over a long period of time.
Oh yeah, I mean
decades.
Yeah,
we've spent way too much time. I'm gonna get on my soapbox a little bit.
Do it.
We've spent way too much time sowing distrust in journalists and not listening to real journalists. We've spent all of our time listening to a bunch of political hacks.
I'll just say this real quick. Do you know how much the Harris Waltz administration paid Oprah for the interview that she did?
Oprah's not a journalist, man.
$1 million. Here's what I'm saying. Paid for
She
media.
didn't pay Oprah. They paid
Yes.
Harpo Productions.
Oh, okay. So what I'm saying
She
is
took
this.
no money.
What I'm saying is this. I know that it's not media, Chad, and I was not referencing that part of it to say that it's media. What I'm saying
There's a lot of people complicit
is
in
that
that
there
confusion,
is
though.
many people and many entities that will put whatever message out there makes them the most money.
Bing. It makes money. In
Ratings.
In 1999, I said I think it's stupid and it's ridiculous that if I were to apply and get a job at the National Enquirer, I would make enough money that I could retire in Kansas in about 4 years. Instead, I live paycheck to paycheck. I think it's effing ridiculous. That hasn't changed. Okay?
Well, except for there's less local papers.
Yes. By the way, my company's planning to buy a bunch more. But anyway, we have placed our faith and we have placed our time, talents, and treasures in the hands of people who are going to lie to us and stoke our fears. Don't believe me? I'm going to throw down a challenge. If you're a watcher of Fox News, take 2 weeks, flip it to MSNBC, and don't turn it off when they piss you off. Sit there and go, oh yeah, they're stoking the fear. Oh yeah, that's where they're stoking the Democrat fear. If you're a watcher of MSNBC, do the exact reverse. If you're a watcher of OAN, flip over to CNN in the evenings.
What about Harvey County Talk?
Well, we provide accurate, dedicated, trustworthy,
I'm just saying.
opinions. Always.
With the journalist intact.
Hey, that's our credibility.
Keep us in check, baby.
And
That's horrible.
and then also think about how much time gets dedicated to demonizing actual journalists.
Well, it depends on what side that the article
And
opinion of theirs that said they wrote it this way or that way because they are leaning. They didn't want to hear that piece of fact, so they go, "Oh, this journalist is this way, and this journalist is this way." You know,
sure,
Matt Taibbi.
This is
What do you think about Taibbi and the Twitter thing? Because you
I
don't
don't even
like
know
Twitter.
who he is.
Oh wow!
I don't even know who he is.
They buried the
He's a hitter.
algorithms on him.
No. Hey,
They probably hiding it from real journalists.
yeah, baby. I love it.
It is a thing.
the thing that drives me nuts, because I take those calls. Why are you doing it this way? I'm like, so when I report the fact that Harvey County just gave $35,000 to Brooks Trade Center, that's being liberal.
That's because we've been conditioned to be in a media silo that only reports things the way that we want them to be reported.
Let me see if I can pull this rabbit out real quick. Okay. Board of Education. HCTalk, Kansas National Education Association.
Sure.
Okay? Take this guide with you to the polls. This comes down from Washington up into Kansas to all those people that are part of this that pay dues, that like 95% go to the Democratic Party. And when you look at this, it says take it to the polls. And it says here that they are looking for nonpartisan people. And one of the pieces of information in here talks about how they focus on nonpartisan members. And they want people to be a part of this organization. And when you go to the Kansas House of Representatives, And everybody that suggests to vote for, do you see those letters by the names?
They're D's.
Do you see those
Every
letters by
last
their
one of
names?
them, I'm sure.
There's maybe one R in there. There's another page for the House representatives.
Sure.
All these.
And then there's another page for the Kansas Senate. And then it ends with this one. There's probably 3 R's in that list.
Of 50 to 100.
For the House. The Senate. Right? And all their local representatives are Democrats. This is gaslighting. When you tell me that I have to be, and why am I feeling like I have to feel in a system that doesn't really want to hear what I think. They want me to hear what they think and parrot them. And then they wonder why I don't submit my nominations for them to support me. And then they make it on me that I'm not participating. And then I get phone calls from local people that don't know me that put me in this box. I take those calls too, Chad. And they don't know me. But they see this. And I have to hear what they have to say, that a decision that I made is from the national talk. The reason you get beat up as a real journalist is what's going on with the national journalists, like what CNN's doing to propagate, what Fox News is doing to propagate. Yes, I put both of them in the box because they both do it. But they're hurting you. But they look at you and they connect you to them. They look at me and they connect me to them.
Exactly.
And I don't want nothing to do with this.
That's a big part of my point.
Identity politics at its best.
Okay. We're spending all of our time watching, pick one. We're spending all our time watching Rachel and Sean. Okay? And neither one of them are up front, quite honestly, about who they are. They want to be me. They want everybody to think they're me.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? They want everybody to think they're Walter Cronkite. They present themselves like they're Walter Cronkite. And then everybody spends their time with them. They're not spending them with any of the modern Walter Cronkites.
But I have a question when it comes to this, though, too, Chad. I don't think people are looking for the truth. All right? I think people are looking for...
And there's been analysis that's come out that would confirm what you're saying.
I want
what they're really looking for. What they're really looking for is
confirmation of their own bias.
Confirmation bias, yes.
That's what they want. And we have not gotten to this place overnight, but we are coming to the end of the program, fellas. So not to cut
already.
off.
Holy cow.
It goes fast.
That was a good one.
And I'll say this.
I hope people liked that as much as I did.
I did plan on part of what we talked about today to just announce some of the White House or Trump campaigns choices or picks for these different departments, and we're just gonna have to wait till next week to do that.
Which is good, because I've been so busy with guys like Andy over here the last few days, I haven't really been able to pay much attention. So
yeah, well, and it's one of those things. Once again, I know that there was some mention of. I'll just throw out some. Secretary of State I think pretty much decided it's going to be Marco Rubio. U.S. Ambassador is Elise Stefanik. My bad. Border czar is going to be Tom Homan.
Bringing the hammer.
As one that I thought was probably the most interesting, and this was all reported by CBS, obviously, Defense Secretary was going to be Pete Hegseth. So read about some of these people. That's what I'm going to do over the course of this week, to be able to bring more information that's credible and accurate, because we're not taking it right off the bat. We don't have to be first. We are a podcast that looks at what has happened over the week, is able to get credible information, the best that we can, and then to disseminate that information to you by 3 guys that are absolutely awesome here in Harvey County. And that's Chad, Andy, and myself. So anyway,
you go, boy.
Okay, so Chad, 20 seconds or less. What do you got for us for the final word?
The Rod Roast is on Saturday. My script is done. And Andy Harder, if you're listening, and I know you are, since you were the first one to jump down my throat about going too easy, better be prepared, my man.
Andy, what do you got? What do you got?
Man, love your neighbor. Do everything you can to serve the people next to you. Try to understand where people are coming from, and when you can't, just walk away. You don't have to beat them up.
It's good. And I will say this. I say this all the time, and I'll say it again. This is what I want my final word to be, because of the fact that we have seen such a fear-driven campaign on both ends that have inspired us to, well, vote out of fear, which just hear me out, folks. Fear gives birth to anxiety. Anxiety gives birth to anger. Anger gives birth to wrath. Wrath gives birth to violence. Violence gives birth to death. Think about that. And then apply many, many things that you go through on a day-to-day basis with that. And ask yourself, how afraid am I really? Have a good week, everybody.